Good afternoon. You're watching Businessworld Live. I'm Jes Delos Santos. Let's take a look at how the local bourse closed today, Friday. Some last-minute bargain hunting, pushing shares higher once again, but not much conviction for the most part of the trading day, with shares declining as much as 2.5% to 6,080. That's a six-month low here for the index, despite the easing of quarantine restrictions to GCQ with heightened restrictions in the NCR Plus bubble. It's a continued worry about the lack of growth that's pulling down trading, according to Astro Del Castillo of First Grade Finance. GCQ still seems restrictive, keeping investors cautious, especially since there's a lack of positive catalyst on the economic front as well as on COVID-19 cases. But amid a sell-off, investors took shares they considered cheap right before close. Japet Anchanko of Philstocks Financial said what took place is just bargain hunting for key stocks. Sentiment remains bearish since economic prospects remain cloudy. Likewise, you have Jonathan Rabelas of BDO saying that the main index could test 6,000 in the near term, but might fall to 5,700 if support won't hold market pricing in a weaker pace of recovery. Compounding the situation is the MSCI rebalancing, which lowers weighing for local equities. Then that's precisely what happened today for some blue chips here. Mega World, as you can see, dragged the most. The property player fell 7.8% as it will be taken out of the MSCI Philippines Index. Meg now at 2 pesos and 60 centavos a piece. Same scenario for Pure Gold. It will be taken out of the MSCI Index. It's now down close to 4% to 31 pesos and 65 centavos a share. But some of the shares that got scooped up right before close, you have SM Investment, the day's best performer. That's up 4.3% at 963.50. SM Prime likewise also gaining here over 1.5% to 33 pesos a share. Another blue chip here also dumped today. You have Ayala Corporation after releasing the first quarter 19% year-on-year. Revenue likewise also inching lower, 1.3% to 60.2 billion pesos. There are some sequential gains though. Core income is up quarter-on-quarter by 5% to 7.2 billion pesos. You have weak output from Ayala Land, AC Industrials, and AC Ventures, but losses from those segments were somehow offset by growth from Globe and AC Energy. According to their president and CEO, Fernando Zobel de Ayala, the challenges and prospects brought about by the pandemic is an opportunity for them to actually recalibrate their portfolio strategy in the next 3 years. The aim is to sharpen the components of their portfolio to optimize returns and further strengthen their balance sheet. Ayala Corporation is now at 725 a share, down close to 0.3% at Friday's close. It's that time of the year again. Tax filing deadline set for tomorrow, May 15. Just how hard is it to comply with requirements in this age of COVID-19? Let's ask Task Quiz Mon Abrea. Good afternoon, Mon.
Good afternoon, Jes.
All right. So the BIR did not extend tax filing. But taxpayers have until May 15 to at least amend their returns without penalties. What are the possible implications from this?
Well, actually, it was expected that the deadline will not be extended, primarily because the Bureau of Internal Revenue was able to provide all the digital platforms or online filing and payment of facilities available to all taxpayers nationwide. So we expected that a lot of taxpayers were able to file, but those who encountered some problems, they are allowed to amend until tomorrow, which is actually effective until Monday, since the May 15 deadline is Saturday. So all taxpayers who wish to amend may do so until Monday, May 7th.
But given the experience in 2020, how was tax compliance in general, Mon? And do people really get to pay their taxes on time?
Well, actually, last year, despite the quarantine, the first time that we experienced the quarantine, and I think for twice the deadline was extended. We actually surprisingly saw more than 80% electronic filing of income tax returns. Now, as to whether payments were made on time, I think a lot of individuals availed of the installment payment, which means only 50% was paid on or before April 15, and the balance was settled before October 15 last year.
Okay, so you said most of the taxpayers at least would prefer to pay in installments. How is that going to affect at least collection for the BIR?
Well, Jeff, that is applicable only to individuals. I think the collection of BIR is not so much affected because more than 60% of our collection still comes from our large corporations.
Now, at the same time, are extensions somehow warranted given the type of situation that we are in? Or if not, what other leeways should at least a BIR consider for taxpayers?
I think if there will really be a huge amount of taxes which were not settled, probably Congress or the Senate can come up with a bill that would remove or take away the penalties, at least in consideration of the quarantine, since the extension was not given. Anyway, this is already in consideration of the fact that people tried to file and pay on or before the deadline. But for those who still were not able to do so, probably there can be a way of a relief that would not impose the 25% surcharge.
Now, Mon, the target of the BIR is to collect 231.57 billion pesos. How realistic of a target is that?
Well, for the first quarter, there was a slight decline or miss of the target. So we want to be positive that a lot of corporations, especially the big ones, were able to settle their taxes on or before April 15. But if in case we will not hit the target, I think it's really understandable given the situation that a lot of our MSMEs really had a hard time, and a lot of them did not even declare any profit because they incurred so much losses in 2020.
Now, what's interesting as well, you mentioned earlier, 80% of filings at least were done through electronic services. Do you see this trend even rising even more for 2020?
Actually, just the 80% was in 2019 filing. So in 2020, last year, it was actually 90%. So this year, I think if not 100%, it's more or less 99%, given the fact that none of us would want to go to BIR offices just to file. And given that online facilities are available to all taxpayers, I think everyone sought and availed of the electronic filing.
Now, do you see a full shift happening this year?
Yes, in fact, if there will be problems, it's mostly on the countryside where the internet is not that strong, and that is understandable that people would still want the manual since they cannot rely on their internet. But again, the bulk of collection is really in the NCR, and the internet here is more or less reliable if it's just a matter of filing.
Now, Mon, moving on to other topics here, this has been a point of debate, a point of contention, even in Congress, the possibility of taxing digital services. What's your take on this?
Again, I think our position is very clear that the government needs a lot of fundings, and they would really want to tax anything that or transactions that would really help collect the taxes. And digital economy proves to be really a potent source given the huge revenues being generated. But we just have to be careful so that we don't discourage or kill the growing digital economy, given that it became as a way to for a lot of our kababayans or MSMEs to survive during the quarantine. But there's really two way of looking at it. There are the big companies, especially the foreign companies who are actually generating a lot of revenues from these digital platforms like Amazon, Facebook, and all. And I think we really have to impose taxes on them. But whether it is the regular 12% in income tax or a digital service tax like what other countries adopted, that's something that we need to study thoroughly so that we will really generate revenue and not simply pass on the burden to our subscribers like us, yes, and the users of these online platforms.
Now, another thing you have e-sabong here that also is being considered to be taxed, especially given that during the pandemic, there has been a rise in e-sabong operations. At the same time, you now have PAGCOR looking for licensed operators. How are you reading this?
Well, the sabong is actually subject to 18% amusement tax. I think the Senate bill is just to remove the gray area that whether it is a physical sabong or digital sabong, it has to be subject to 18% amusement tax. And similar to Pogo, which was subjected to 5% franchise tax. I think more than ever, these are the things that we should really be imposing taxation so that the government can raise the revenues without hurting the, 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 the ordinary Filipinos who are not into cockfight or sabong.
All right. Thank you very much for your time this afternoon and for your insights again, Tax Wiz Mon Abrea. Thank you, Mon.
Thank you, Jes.
Here are other headlines we're keeping our eyes on. 6 Philippine companies made it to Forbes' list of 2,000 of the world's biggest firms. SM Investments led the pack, placing 877 with a whopping market value of $24 billion. The SM Group's banking arm, BDO, followed with $70 billion in assets. San Miguel Corporation's largest shareholder, Top Frontier, also made it to the list, along with Ayala Corporation, LT Group, and the Metro Bank. Those three secured bottom rankings. Forbes noted that while sales and profits for most companies in the list declined, their total assets and market value still grew. SM, BDO, LT Group, and Metro Bank shares were up this Friday, while the two other firms in Forbes' list, Top Frontier and Ayala Corporation, ended lower in today's trade. Now, the Labor Department says the country is close to hitting its deployment cap for Filipino nurses as more countries seek to hire additional healthcare workers. DOLE previously exempted the United Kingdom from the 5,000 deployment limit among nurses under the condition that departing Filipino nurses will be vaccinated. The department says Germany is also in need of more nurses, but has yet to secure an agreement with the Philippine government over deployment matters. As for repatriation efforts, DOLE says over 500,000 OFWs have been sent home due to threats from the pandemic. Nearly 50,000 more are up for repatriation. The department is also closely monitoring the situation in Israel, where tensions have since escalated to see if there is a need to repatriate OFWs there. And those are the biggest stories this trading day, May 14, 2021. Catch Businessworld Live Monday next week at 9:30 a.m. for the market open and 3:15 p.m. for the market close. I'm Jes Delos Santos. We are One News. Mask on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines. Have a great weekend.